Okay. Woo. All right, let's call that to order.
Are all the microphones?
Microphones on, yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let me scroll down a little bit. We need to approve the agenda. We need a motion.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We need to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we have any audience delegations, Susan?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Pretty sure no.
Pretty sure no.
So, it's my first party house special. Like one day.
Okay, the student recognition, since we didn't get to do last month, it would be 4 videos, and they're kind of long between the 4 of them. So if everybody would make sure you please go and watch those. School board recognition week. Looks like this is the 14th through the 20th.
It was.
Was.
It was. So,
We missed it.
well, I'd like to take the opportunity. We haven't met in person, so I'd just like to take the opportunity to express my appreciation on behalf of the students and employees of the school district for everything that our school board does. I think we have a terrific school board. It's, as everyone knows here, it's a thankless job, and it's voluntary, but truly the appreciation comes in the form of the students and their accomplishments. And we had each of the buildings adopt one of the board members, and they've got all their goodies up here, and we got nice cards and thank yous from students and staff who worked to express their appreciation. We also have School Boards Association, Missouri School Boards Association, has sent certificates for the school board members, and I'd like to just read a little bit from that. The school board service can seem like a thankless task, yet board members devote countless hours to making critical decisions that benefit the public school students in our communities throughout the state. To honor board members, Governor Parson designated the week of February 14th through 20th, 2021 as Missouri School Board Recognition Week. The goal of this week is to increase awareness and understanding of the crucial function of an elected Board of Education plays in the success and advancement of our public schools. So thank you very much for all that you do.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Monthly information item. Anybody have any questions or anything to fill in there?
I was just glad to read that HMS is controlling the Chromebooks now and determining that the students are learning from the Chromebooks instead of, I don't know what all they can do on them, but I thought that sounds like a great plan to me. Good job. He's not even here, but anyway.
I'll pass on your
I was
appreciation.
glad to read that. I think that is really good.
All right. Board member disclosure statement. This is the board member personnel financial disclosures. Susan provided a copy. I think we got an email as well.
Probably from Missouri.
I think I got mine in the mail.
Maybe in the mail. Okay.
Yeah, I think
And that is due by May 1st. Okay, construction update.
So Brandon Stanley's here to update the progress that's moving quickly. So, Brandon.
Thank you. Well, this is the first time I've been in front of any of you, probably in person.
Yes.
Last few have been virtual. I know Lynn Newkirk and John Novak were usually down here kind of before we started construction. So you'll be seeing a lot more of me in the future. I don't have anything to present tonight, but that's something Paul and I can work on next month for sure and have some slides and some photos for you guys to work through. So as you all know, we started construction on the 8th. If you could get it to quit raining, I would appreciate it.
All warm.
I know, it's my fault. Sorry.
Way to go, Paul.
So far we have made some progress at the Career Center in particular. The nurses addition, which is on the south side, we built the building pad there, and we're starting to be prep rebar and getting ready to start digging and pouring concrete footings, hopefully tomorrow if the weather holds off. We are working on Area C, which is kind of the fire addition there on the north side, getting some electrical and mechanical moved out of there. That's next there in that location. Area E, which is on the west side of the building where the ag additions are going and the greenhouse addition are going, same thing. We're starting to move some electrical and mechanical around. We're going to be starting doing some dirt work on there, over there in the next week or so as well. At the Early Childhood Center, right over there, we also have dirt work completing the pad built. So it's kind of tracking the same as the nurses addition at the Career Center, where we'll be starting concrete on there tomorrow as well. So over the next month, what you're going to see is concrete, like I said, numerous locations, and you're going to see some steel show up middle next month for the additions at the nurse and the Career Center and the early childhood on the south side. Everything else, we're going to keep working, and a lot of the work's really going to be starting when school gets out into May. But yeah, we're making progress. So,
Well, you can drive around and see it.
yeah.
It's obvious we're working.
Any questions or thoughts?
No, I was just going to say it was wonderful. We had 40% of the local contractors that applied got contracts.
Yeah, so we had 5 bids from local contractors, and right now we have awarded 3 of those 5 bids.
Oh, it's up to 3 now. Okay.
So yeah, Harrisonville Electric's the big one. They have the electrical package on both jobs. So the Career Center, which was package 2, and then package 1 was the middle school, early childhood, elementary school. That's how we kind of broke it up into 2 separate packages. So they have all the electrical on all your first 2 packages. It's worth about $500,000. So
That's awesome.
Nice.
big chunk. Absolutely. That's a critical scope too. So it's
Local money that stayed here. Local,
Absolutely,
So
yes.
thank you all for that.
Yep. The other one is Legacy Fence. They're going to be doing the temporary fence around all of our projects, so they're local as well.
They also built the parking lot, temporary parking lot at CCC to help bus turn around. So they've been really great to work with to help us as we're going to have needs go through that. And then I just want to put a plug in for Chad too, as the superintendent on site that's reached out to building principals. They're meeting outside because of COVID, but if there's classes that want to kind of learn this construction process, I think he's met with some CCC outside maybe, and he likes to talk, so he is good about sharing through that processes. And along this way, we've also had the Project Lead the Way classes were in Zoom meetings with our design team, and a couple times even would zoom in and say, "What about?" and had some comments on some stuff. So Newkirk, Novak, and Holliston have been very open to the education process along the way, as well as Jill working with them in the opening at the beginning, and seeing the kids' excitement was a lot of fun and in that start of that project.
So if there's any point in the time where the board would like to walk any of these jobs during construction, please reach out to me or Paul or Jason. We'll be glad to arrange that. After hours, maybe sometimes for a board meeting, we meet at a job site at 5:30 or something and walk it. Be glad to do that. Love to do that. Just let me know what works for you guys and what you'd like to see.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thank you.
Assessment and evaluation of district programs.
Okay, revenues, current year, or we're currently 67% through our year. So in relation to that, our current year property taxes are about 102% of budget, so we're good there. Prop C revenues at 65%.
Thank you, Brandon.
Intangible tax receipts came in in February, and they exceeded the budget by $29,000. So that's good. State revenues are at 59% of budget, which is a little low. However, in the newsletter we just got from DESI, it did say that the governor has released the basic formula funds for the rest of the year. So those will be spread over the March and April payments, so we should see a little bit more the next couple months, and that the release of those funds should result in us receiving our full state adequacy target amount. So things are looking better there. Classroom trust fund is still a little bit below the budgeted levels. It doesn't look like we're going to see the full amount on that, but it hasn't been determined how much we'll see of that. So that is to be determined.
When will we know that, Deb?
Well, it's June generally,
okay.
yeah. But the boat's being closed.
But it's
that-
too late.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, they closed the boats for a while. That really hurt the classroom trust fund money. So
Yeah. So we did start January 1st. We started a new food service program, and the reimbursements for that. I think we were just a little bit slow getting that reimbursement in after January. So we did not get that in time to get our reimbursement during February. So we're just a month behind on that. So we'll have 2 months that came in March. So we'll be playing catch up there. So that was about $106,000. So if you looked at the comparison at all from last year to this year, at that time it was down about $100,000. So that's where the difference is there. Overall, revenues for the general operating and special revenue funds are at 78% of budget, so we're looking good there. On the expenditure side, at 56% of budget, so that's good. I didn't notice anything notable in that. Fund balance percentage is at 40.6%. In relation to our goal at the 20 to 25% area there. Cash and investments at $24.9 million, 10.3 of that is bond proceeds. So, any questions?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Yeah.
MCC MOU SE. That's how I read it.
Oh
When
my
I read it
God.
earlier, that's sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
We really digressed.
We did. We keep doing that.
Yeah.
Something earlier.
I read when I read that. I just couldn't help but sing the song in my head. No, Mickey Mouse.
Singing Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
Do we do the motion and then take chapter?
He's got some information. Thank you.
Yes.
That's why he's good.
You bet. So several weeks ago now, I had a conversation with Dr. Ryan Kreider, who is the Dean of Instruction at MCC Longview, and our conversation centered around how we can increase dual credit opportunities for our students at Harrisonville High School. And one of the things he brought up, they started a early college academy this year with what they call the South Kansas City High Schools, and it was Ruskin, Hickman Mills, and Grandview. And the way it works is they were going to have a cohort starting their junior year that would take a prescripted set of classes their junior fall year, junior spring year, senior fall year, senior spring year, and the students would be taking those together. And their original plan was the students were going to get bused to Longview to take those courses. Well, then pandemic happened. So they switched to virtual, and they've got about 36 students right now that are doing the cohort between those three high schools, all virtually. So I was a little intrigued by that, and I asked him, could we do something similar? And could we do it virtual from here on out because of the distance between us and Longview? So he went back to his people, got back to me and said, we can do it. So what they've come up with, what I handed you, this would be the schedule that our students at Harrisonville would take. It's 6 credits their junior fall year, 6 credits their junior spring year, and then it jumps to 9 credits their fall senior year, 9 credits their senior spring year, and then in the summertime they would like them to take 2 science classes. What this means is when a kid graduates Harrisonville, they'd have 30 plus college credit hours. And those classes are all Core 42 classes, which means they will transfer to any state college or university. So I think it would be a great program for our kids.
They transfer as that credit.
As that
not,
credit,
Not elective credit. A lot
Right.
of times they transfer as elective credit. The Core 42 transfer as that credit at all state.
The nice thing about this program, there's two things that are really nice. One is students are taking it as a cohort. So in our junior fall year, if we get 20 kids to enroll in it, we have 20 of us that are all taking English 101 together through MCC. We can support each other. We can help each other. We have the same instructor. The other nice thing is, unlike a live taught dual credit class, for example, UCM composition that we offered that Mrs. Devaney teaches, that's only offered 1 hour out of the school day. And sometimes a kid can't fit that into their schedule. With us virtual, they can fit that class into any one of their hours. So it'll help their schedule a lot. Any questions?
How does the credit get paid for?
Student has to pay for it. It's $99 a credit hour. They do a payment plan, but the parents would pay Longview directly.
So,
What?
well, I just, how come Longview is just now?
Presenting this?
Yes.
Well, it sounds like
They
we
did.
had
It sounds like
asked
you
them.
went
We
to
had the-
them.
Yeah.
How long of a process was this for you?
Oh, this has been going on for a couple months now.
That's not bad
Yeah.
at all.
And they have gone through a lot of leadership changes at the top at MCC.
We know.
And,
Kids have had the opportunity to take classes from MC. I mean, my daughter's taking classes there, so they've had that opportunity to do that. This is just kind
and
of.
it's
more
been a
of
hodgepodge where this is more of a prescripted, you're in a cohort. Dr. Prater told me they would go so far as if we have 15 to 20 kids are enrolled in English 101 and they're struggling, they'll send an instructor down to our campus for a day.
So will all these
support
kids
this.
be taking the class during school hours?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I guess my question is, I noticed in all this paperwork, it seemed like there were 3 different options, or however you want to say it, 3 different programs that were covered in this agreement. And so I got a little bit confused about all of that.
Yeah, ours would be all virtual. They'd be taking it during the school day. They would simply, one of their 8 hours of the school day, they would be in Mr. Langer's online classroom taking their MCC college class.
Okay. So would it would just be all juniors together taking it? The
Well,
first
they
year?
necessarily wouldn't take it the same hour. Because again, that's one
Oh,
of
I
the beauties
see.
of this project, of this plan, is
Uh-huh.
that
Whatever their schedule allows.
whatever they have an open slot, they can fit in an online class, they can go in there and take it.
And so
But that's
then
not to say that after school or before school, those students can get together as a cohort and work
Oh.
on it together.
So then they wouldn't be required to take our English courses if they're taking the college level, is that right?
It would be dual credit, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
Is there another university that we're using for dual credit as well?
We do use UCM for live talk classes. And we also use UMKC. Our chemistry is taught through UMKC.
And CCC has others too. So Crowder for English and
So this is a win-win for our students here.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
I mean, opportunity for a kid to leave high school with 30 to 42 college credit hours. They're going to get through their bachelor's degree pretty darn quick and a lot cheaper than if they wait till after high school.
Sure. Okay.
and I'll tell you. So my daughter graduated from. She went through a similar program. It wasn't. But she graduated from college in 3 years because she had done this in high school. It saved her probably $20,000, and she was able to start teaching a year earlier. So it's a good deal for kids.
Well, and because of their proximity, Lee Summit and Ray Peck, they've been doing this for a couple of years now. They have an early college academy, but they bus their kids to campus. They're either on campus in the morning or in the afternoon, and they spend 3 hours on campus. And then the school district buses them back to the building.
The
You know.
cohorting is nice. My daughter has done it the last 2 years through MCC on her own in one of the classes. However, she's usually the only high school kid, and when they do those introductories, you know, there are a lot of non-traditional students taking classes at MCC, and they're always like, you're only 17, 18? Well, I'm 25, just had my baby, and coming back to school now, and, you know, stuff like that. So having that cohort would be really nice for kids to...
So we're not duplicating the classes dual credit wise with the other universities. There's just a wide
These are
range
in
of
addition to
Right.
those.
duplicating anything.
Yep.
And it says that we pay their books.
No, students pay for their books.
It said the school pays for the books. What section was that?
Maybe. Missed that one.
Number 11 says high schools provide the textbooks
There you go.
specified by MCC for dual credit students.
Missed that part.
Is that because they're getting credit here?
Yeah, I would say so.
That we
Well, so at my former high school in Cameron, we did this exact same partnership with North Central College out of Trenton. And the year I left, we had about 50 kids enrolled in that program. Our high school bought those textbooks, but then the students reimbursed the high school if they wanted to keep the book.
But
I'm
Bing's
just wondering
got-
if it's online.
You've got I mean, that's the point, is that it because it's dual credit, essentially it is our class. We're giving them a credit too, so if we don't pay for that textbook, essentially we could be accused of denying a free public education at that point. So
Yeah, that's on page 14, number 11.
And these classes are prescripted, and he notes in his letter to me that they can add classes. So if they feel like they want to take more than 6 that fall junior year, they can add a class.
Really?
Yes. And they don't have to start just their junior year. If they want to jump in and do it their senior year and not do it their junior year, they can do that as well.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. They're using AccuPlacer as a placement test instead of the ACT. They will send their people down to the high school to do the AccuPlacer test for us. So,
Well, and the point about the books is each one of them has to have their own book, right? And it's a download, probably, not an actual physical book.
I think it
Not
probably varies from
necessarily.
class to
Whatever the
class.
class requires.
Has there been any issue with the dual credits transferring? There is one of the sentence states that some Missouri institutions limit the number of dual credits.
If it's a Core 42 class, my understanding is that it has to transfer. Because the Department of Higher Ed got all the colleges together and said, we want these classes, these Core 42s, to be able to transfer to any state, college, or university. That was actually developed by the Department of Higher Ed.
But if they go outside of state, it might just count as an elective credit. Maybe. I mean, each institution is different.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mark?
Good job. Thank you.
I would have done
yeah.
it. 30 grand.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I can't remember at this
Need a
point.
motion.
I can't remember if we made a
Say
motion.
this.
Can we get a motion on this?
It is a pain.
Make the motion to approve the MCC MOU for Early College Academy as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, revisions to the board policy I-110P.
So this is the second introduction or reading of the policy. This is our recommended changes to the board policy to reflect what our current practices for reading instruction are with our reading improvement plans. So we would recommend that change.
We need a motion.
I move to approve the revisions to board policy I-110P as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A board annual organizational meeting. We need a motion.
I move to establish Tuesday, April 20, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. as the board's annual organizational meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the MCC Levy Discussion.
I'll just start off. So today there were some emails going around from school districts up north for the first time, and I guess Grain Valley. So Dr. Schutz at Smithville, Dr. Reich at Platte County. Who's at Grain Valley? I can't remember. Snow, Dr. Snow. Thank you, Dr. Snow at Grain Valley. Those three were on an email chain with us and just sharing information. All those school districts have done the same thing essentially that we have, and issuing to their patrons the same information, that we did not put this on the ballot, that basically the same thing, the same information that we did. So,
Which I thank you for putting that on there. I've had a few folks that have made mention to that and reading that, so
I hope they interpret it correctly. So let's.
You were very specific and plain, so
As
it
a
was very
s-
good.
as a school
We did
board
not put
member,
this on the ballot.
I stayed very neutral in my discussion with them.
So that was good. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Paul.
I also worked with the Green Valley, Platte County, and Ray County people, so we work together.
I think it's good that all the districts are on the same page, so there's no misunderstanding that this is not school,
Sanction.
yes, thank you.
I was on a Zoom call with MCC and the other districts, and they were going through a PowerPoint and explaining the levy and things like this, and there was only one district that popped up and said they were supporting it, so, and that was Blue Springs.
The fire department my husband works for in Oak Grove got a big blast about it. All the school districts that were going to benefit from this, and so he reads the email to me that went out to all of the employees at his department, and he was like, wow, this is great. And so then I told him really what was happening, and yes, but, and then he said,
However.
oh, right. So they're definitely hitting businesses hard, and they're going full force at it. There is a committee that's been formed, Citizens Against the Junior College Tax Hike. Any information on that?
Just that there's signs if people want them.
They're in red, so it doesn't look like it's part of our school district. It doesn't look like it's part of Ray Peck's school district, so they're definitely separate. Just get the word out.
Well,
that this is
I'd
not-
also add that I know there's been quite a bit of discussion in Jefferson City, and my understanding is legislation's been passed that a junior college in the future who attaches language will in the future have to spell out that it's a levy and exactly how much it will cost
Really?
on the ballot
Well,
language.
that's
And,
good
and
to
it's
know.
it limits that to junior colleges?
No,
or?
I think I don't know that it limits it to the junior colleges.
But they're
I think
included.
it's in a college or,
That come out of the Senate.
so it won't help us this year, but I should rectify the putting out ballot language that appears that it looks like it's coming from a school district.
Okay. And then would let the taxpayers know that they will be paying taxes on it.
Yes, I
that it
think
is
that's
a
the
levy.
big misunderstanding. Very few understand that.
Well, none of the postcards that they sent out specify anything.
Yes.
Mhm.
I finally got mine yesterday, and
I got
it's,
mine yesterday,
Now
too.
look nice. One or two. There's a second one.
I've just gotten one.
No, they sent
Well, I
two.
haven't gotten any.
Too, but neither one of them talk about the tax increase or the tax levy.
The last I had heard, they were going to talk to the Raymore Chamber of Commerce. Do you know if they did? If they gave a presentation there?
I don't know.
Yes,
Big
they
line,
did.
though.
They did. And did the district have someone there to give a presentation as well? Because I had heard that was going to.
My understanding is, from talking with folks there, that yes, the college presented, and then there was a counter presentation made by our presiding commissioner
Okay.
that explained,
Further explain the situation.
further explained details related to it.
And then the Belton paper did have an article this week interviewing, is it Schlegel? Schlegel. I always think of the high school, Schlegel up north. Superintendent from RAPAC.
Okay.
And I think the way they got away with it, the wording is that word annex. Because that was in there, that's what allowed them to supposedly not have to disclose what the levy would be.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We'll move on to the strategic plan.
So this week we had a meeting with, this week? What was this week? We had a meeting with our,
It's Tuesday.
I
Paul.
know. I know.
It's been a long
It's been a long day. We had a meeting with principals to talk about instructional, basically objectives for the future and how we're going to improve our MTSS process. So a lot of focus on that multi-tiered system of support. We are going to develop a district-wide MTSS committee. They're going to start meeting in June, and that's then each building will have their MTSS, and so it will just filter down from there. We'll be first discussion is what exactly are interventions versus accommodations, and so we had some really good discussion. A lot of discussion yesterday about grading practices and assessment, standards-based grading, reporting of standards-based grading, reporting of grading overall, and so some pretty deep philosophical discussions I thought about those things, and so that's leading to change and consistency, and so I think we'll continue to see improvement on that front. Just to give you a little update on assessment this year, that's tied with our instruction too. So we will be taking the MAP assessment and the end of course exams. That's a requirement that's coming up pretty soon. In the past, there's been a requirement that essentially 95% of your students had to take the test, or you were dinged basically by the state as not providing enough data. So this year they've changed that just because of all the virtual students and the fear of getting those students to take the assessments. We do have, we are ready to provide accommodations for those students should their families request them to be able to take the assessments. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible in addressing those needs. So we are starting our summer school plans and so our summer school plans revolve around interventions and closing that learning gap that occurred essentially with a lack of direct instruction. So we're going to invite, each building has designated a process where they can identify those students that need to be invited to summer school, and then we're going to invite them. We have a specific process for providing interventions to help close that learning gap, but that's a big part of the ESSER 2 money, ESSER 3 money now, and all of the ESSER money, I guess, is the learning gap, closing that learning gap. And so, in addition to our summer school funds, we're going to be focusing on that, and so we may be looking to develop a plan for how we can extend some opportunities for those kids to close those learning gaps. It's definitely a concern of ours. It's not just providing the interventions, but identifying those kids that need those interventions. So it's a challenge, but I think our principals and Christy and Annie have done a good job of trying to make sure we're consistent in how we're going to attack it as a district, and it's a big part of trying to provide the best learning environment that we can for our students. So I think you'll see a lot of that throughout the country as people try to attack that learning gap. I'll say this again and again. I'm very appreciative of our staff and the board for allowing our students to come back in person. I think that's going to make a big difference when you see that discussion about learning gap. Our kids have been here. They've been in person. They've had the opportunity to learn, and so hopefully that learning gap will be reduced. So
I've had several people from other districts that they weren't in person Monday through Friday like we were, and their kids are far behind. They're suffering educationally, they're suffering mentally, not having some of those contacts, and it was not an easy decision that we made. It wasn't an easy decision, I know, for your committee to get together and reach that conclusion, but it was absolutely the best thing for our kids, and I'm proud of the fact that we did that and we made it through, and it was not without its challenges, but we're here to do the best thing for kids, and I feel like we did.
I've had
We
people call
all of us did, for sure.
the chamber and want to know if we were accepting enrollments. I said, yeah, you can move into the district. It's fine.
Well,
We'll take your kids. You can move here from Johnson County or Jackson County or wherever it was.
And find a house.
to that point, there is an open enrollment bill, and I think you see a lot of that discussion in legislation this year. We're at the midpoint of the legislative session. You see a lot of discussion, but there's a bill moving through on open enrollment that's gaining a lot of traction. It was introduced by Senator Brad Pollitt from Sedalia, who's a former school superintendent. It's not your typical voucher and charter school approach. It's an open enrollment for public schools, similar to what they have in Iowa. And there are some concerns to the bill. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are some concerns to the bill with special education. There's some concerns with equity and funding that we might have. But I think it's driven by a lot of that. You have so many schools not providing in-person learning. So I think
the Kansas City and the St. Louis schools were dragging the entire state down. You know, they were fuel for the fodder in Jeff City for all of this stuff that was attacking public education in this last term or whatever you want to call it.
I'm glad to see that we were able to do the in-person learning. And I'm glad to be looking at that next step. It's not all about COVID. It's what is that next step,
Right.
and it's nice to be moving forward.
How's the math and reading pilots come along?
Well, the reading pilot is no longer a pilot. That is our reading. That is our reading curriculum resource. So the math, Christy's got the purchase ready to go, and the PD. She's selecting the PD that's going to be used to help implement the math series for that resource. So both of those will be fully engaged next year. And I know Christy's working a lot. She's analyzing the MSIP 6 requirements for curriculum, and she's going to do an internal curriculum audit, just so teachers are more familiar about what components are really necessary for fully encompassed curriculum. And so it's just some, I think, professional development on what truly is curriculum and how do we get to that point. So a piece of curriculum is, and a very important piece of curriculum is the resources that we provide, but there's a lot more to it. And so DESE has helped with the process. Quite honestly, they've started providing the essential standards. They call them priority standards But for years, individual schools and teachers, individual teachers have identified those standards. So it helps us a lot when we know which standards the state considers essential for our instructors to provide, and it'll make it more consistent, hopefully, throughout. So.
All right. Moving on to personnel, behavior specialist job description.
So what we're seeking is approval of our behavior specialist job description. So as we transition to different personnel, sometimes often we look at the full description of what our behavior specialist is. One of the changes probably with behavior specialists is that we wanted to focus more on behavior specialists versus possibly a teacher. So in the past, when the person that we currently have in the position was a teacher, but that we don't want to just restrict it to teachers. So there's people who have skills in the mental health profession that might be more suited for this position and have that training, but not be a licensed educator, and so they would fit more into this. So it's just kind of opens that up a little bit. So that's just a change that we'd like to recommend as we transition to a new and open that position up for a new individual. So.
Okay, we need a motion.
They don't have to have their teaching certificate. They can still get the job.
Correct. They have to have certification in a different area, but yeah.
All right. Now we need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the revised job description for the position of behavior specialist as presented.
Second.
Third.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 2021-2022 certified salary schedule.
Okay. This is not a change. This is our current salary schedule. We're just slapping the next year on it, and the reason for that is there's a state statute that requires us to adopt a salary schedule by the March board meeting. So we will make an amendment to this, obviously, once the state legislature has determined what the education funding is for next year, and once we have a handle on what our local assessment looks like. I'm supposed to meet with our local assessor, our county assessor, in April. He's going to give us those numbers, so we'll have a little more information so Deb and I can sit down and start to develop our salary schedule, and hopefully we can have, I would say May would be our timeline for the final salary schedule recommendation. So that's generally what we look at, the May board meeting. So.
We need a motion.
Move to approve the preliminary certified salary schedule for the 2021-22 school year as presented.
Second.
Looking at you, Cameron.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The CCC Adult and Community Education Coordinator job description.
So again, this is a chance for us to update the job description when we have somebody who's, in this case, retiring from the school district, and what those requirements might be. Jeanette, do you want to talk to that any? You've had a lot to do with this.
And we've just had a lot of changes in this position in the last 10 years. It has become, there's a lot more to it than there was, and so it was nice to have a chance to get to update that some. In the past, I was in that position, Susan was in that position. We'd always had somebody that had been a teacher, but it's not necessary to have been a teacher to be in this, so that was one of the things we changed that requirement as well in this one. I don't know what questions you might have for me.
So you have to have a certificate for vocational adult education supervisor?
Basically, the way it works with DESE, and I called to confirm this just in case there have been any changes recently, and there have not. And so basically, once you're hired into this position, if you are hired into it and you've got a 4-year degree, and you pass a background check and you've had the blessing of the person hiring you that you can do this job, they will give you the certificate.
Oh.
So it's a
Seems a
4-year
little
degree
backwards.
and having what we feel like they've got. Yeah, I know.
There's not oversight from DESE. Is that a fair
Correct.
statement? There's
Yes.
not oversight. for this position like there is, because it's an adult ed,
Adult
when
ed
we looked into
program.
it,
They're not
like there is
higher ed.
other teaching stuff. So
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know why I don't know why they put that there, because it's adult ed and DESI's not over higher ed at all, or
Huh.
adult ed at all. So it's weird to me, but
And it has so much to do with financial aid, which again is an adult ed thing,
Yeah.
so.
So did this change a lot from the previous one that we
Jeanette?
had? The coordinator job description, has it changed very much?
We had to put more in there. Now that we are doing more adult programs
Mm-hmm.
and our crediting agency has changed. There was a big shift back around 2011 or 12. We were having to fight for financial aid rights. There were a lot of bad actors out there, let's just say, for adult ed that would say, hey, come take classes. We're going to collect all your Pell Grant money and all this, and then we don't care whether you succeed or not.
Oh.
And so we got swept up in some of that. And we had to fight. A lot of the career centers across the state of Missouri actually walked away from their PM programs back there when this happened. We actually tried to partner with MCC back then, and then they got their hands slapped for some things, and we were afraid we'd lose it. And we know how much our communities down here depend on us having the practical nursing program as well as the CNAs and all that that we do at the adult level. So we've got a more rigorous accreditation process now than we had before, but it keeps us with the ability to have the Title IV or the financial aid funding for the adults. So it's a hefty job. It's not something that we can just take anybody to do.
So ideally, it would be somebody with experience in financial aid, I would think, because that is not something that everybody knows.
I could say that, but I will tell you, Susan didn't have that before, and she's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm just really sad that she's leaving right now. I will tell you, I didn't have that. I had a business background, and I had a lot of fiscal responsibility in my prior jobs, but I've never done financial aid.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that they've had that, but having some knowledge of how to work with finance is important.
Sure.
Does this person hire those adult teachers?
Yes, that's a different piece of it.
Okay, because I didn't see that in their
Yeah,
responsibilities.
that's in there too. It says somewhere that they're responsible for not the practical nursing staff, but for the community ed side of things. The other classes we offer that may or may not be certification classes. Like our photography class, that's not a certification class, but our adult CNA class is.
I didn't see that in there, Jeanette.
Well, but the bottom one says perform additional tasks and responsibilities, so that covers whatever.
Well, and when I sent to Kay, I think I sent her more than she could squeeze in there, so maybe that came out. I know it was in there because that's a big piece of it.
Right, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Supervise the adult
evening program.
including
Right there.
assignments of room and shops for adult classes.
But that's not necessarily hiring and firing those adult teachers, right?
we don't.
That's a separate.
Do you hire them?
You don't really hire them. They're on a
Hire.
contract.
it's just
It's just
short term.
they're not teachers. They're
They're not. It's not like a teacher contract. That's why I said she's not over
Okay.
like her
so
practical
she's supervising
nursing.
that program, but you don't.
yeah.
These are just short term.
They're responsible for going out and finding the teachers that are going to make the shell art and the beads and
Well, and the
teach the
CNAs
sewing class
and
and
other
okay.
certifications as well.
Yeah, there are certification classes
Yes.
that are taught by certified teachers, but not all of them are, right? Some of them are.
Yes, some are enrichment, some are certification, some are just I want to learn something.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We need a motion.
Move to approve the job description for the CCC Adult and Community Education Coordinator as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Opa renewal request.
I'm going to talk first. I keep interrupting and talking before the
No, you
motion,
go
so-
ahead.
Okay, so this is just the standard OPA renewal. It's the second of 4 renewals in the contract. It reflects the increase that was part of the original contract. And so that's where we're at with OPA.
Do you have any questions or comments?
Need a
Okay.
motion.
Oh, you're right. We need a motion.
I move to authorize the renewal of the contract with Opa Food Management for 1 year with terms as specified in the original contract dated August 1, 2019.
Second.
Now, do we have questions or comments?
What's the increased pricing for 3.25%?
Inflation.
Just the inflation. Because I know we move that every year. Like we'll charge an additional 10 cents or 15 cents per meal.
That's so the price increase that you're talking about is based on what the federal government requires us to do. So that's been going on for probably, it seems like yesterday, but it's probably been 10 years now. I know. But they started requiring, because what happened, there was a gap between what schools were charging and what they were getting reimbursed from the federal government. And so they were subsidizing illegally, in essence. The federal government defines it as illegal. They were subsidizing paid lunches with non-paid lunches. It happens in healthcare. It happens in a lot of industries. And so it was one way that the USDA said, hey, you can't do that anymore. Your reimbursement, let's say, is $5 per meal, and you're charging paid lunches at $2 a meal. And so you're getting that reimbursement on a free or reduced kid that's subsidizing your paid lunch kids. And so they said you can't do that anymore. So you need to raise your prices to offset that. So
There's a formula that all
it's
goes in and tells you
there's
exactly
a
what you need
spreadsheet
to
formula that they send you every year, and they tell you what the maximum increase is, the minimum increase is. But that's not related to OPA. That's
This increase was in the original contract when they laid out 5 years exactly what it would be every year.
Kind of a tough year, but no issues. We're happy with them. Sounds like.
Jason, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I talked with Mark, who's one of the salesmen today, and I have a meeting with Nicole, who's a regional director, tomorrow, to just address some of the things that have come up this year. I mean, it has been a tough year. Food services, I mean, we've made drastic changes, and so that affect their quality too. Because when we're saying, hey, we need to have all these meals stacked up ready to go, they got to put them in clamshells, and they can't have them scattered everywhere. And so, so there have been some quality issues that come from some of that, choice issues that we're not able to do, and things that they're not able to do. But some things that I want to continue to address with them is how we transition back from, they did some downsizing just because they don't need as much staff because we're not serving as many. How do we transition? Do we have a plan? Because there's not a lot of in the workforce in there. I mean, there's not 50 applications coming. As we transition back to normal, how do we have the personnel lined up and ready to go? So just little leadership things across the way of just leadership with food service and being positive with it and making it great. There's a good website, and OPA has a good website. We just need to communicate that more, I think, with our staff. But again, it's one of those years where, I mean, you use COVID for an excuse for a lot, but it is an excuse for a lot. It's not a high priority, except for if something bad happens. But if there are those issues, we address it, and they jump on it. I had a concern brought to me today, and I made those phone calls, and I had Mark here this afternoon. I have Nicole here tomorrow. So as far as regional support, I feel that's great because, boom, here's some things I brought up or been brought to my attention. I'd like to discuss them, and they're here.
That's good.
So that's positive. The SFSP has been positive. It's also a crazy year because everybody's eating for free.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's that mindset, well, it's free. I mean, why are you complaining? It's free. There's that mindset and philosophy from lots of different people in many different ways, including parents and kids and everything else. So that has been it makes it easy, but it makes it hard in some aspects because of that. And we're going to have to transition back.
That was
And when we transition back, SFSP and the free meals from USDA and September 30th or the start of your school year. So we are going to end it July 30th so that we don't have an August month where we have 2 programs going on. But we have a survey out. Jill sent that out today to parents. You might have gotten that to get some feedback of how many people we will feed virtually or will come and pick up meals this summer, because we will have free meals from 0 to 18. So that is good. That reimbursement is at a higher rate, so we get a little bit more money for those meals. But when we get back to normal, we have a hurdle to overcome in quality and presentation to get kids and parents to want to eat those, if that makes sense, because everybody's tired of eating out of a clamshell. So.
Okay. All right, we need a motion?
No, we have
Nope,
a motion.
you're right. Sorry. Any other questions? Sorry. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, the last thing, bids for rental of Jones Ranch property.
So I had a patron approach me about the school property that's over by my house over there in the Jones Ranch subdivision. It's undeveloped property. What happened was the owner of the property passed away, and earlier this year, and there was cattle that was out there, and I would say that it's accurate that cattle were roaming onto our property and probably consuming our grass. And so, anyways, I had a patron approach me and say, "Hey, would the school district be open to using that for ag land, for leasing that out for ag land, or even purchase?" And so I called Dwayne and talked to him about that, because I've thought about the purchase option for us selling that property for a while. And quite frankly, with our declining enrollment for a long time, I thought it probably would be a good idea if we could get the right price for it. However, with open enrollment looming on the horizon, we don't know what our enrollment might do. And so it's always scary for school districts to get rid of large chunks of property, because they always pay a premium for it and they don't get much in return for it. And so considering those concerns, I thought, well, a lease is a pretty good option for us to be able to at least do something with it in the interim. And so I guess I'm seeing if the board is interested in bidding. We would advertise for bids to lease that property, or if you want to sell it. I think that discussion should be had. So
How many acres is it?
for 30 plus.
30?
30 plus.
Oh.
But this would be a possible site for a future school.
That's what it was purchased for, I understand.
What year was that purchased?
7, yeah.
Okay.
So this person wants to ranch it, and they'll pay us to allow the cows out there.
Or
to eat the
whatever
grass.
agricultural purposes, beans, corn, cattle, sheep, I don't know.
So we're, as a district, we're allowed to make money off of that property?
We are.
Okay.
Who's responsible for the fencing on that property?
Well, there is no fencing currently.
Which is why there are cows on your
So
yard.
there's no cows on my yard. We got fence on my yard.
Just dogs.
If we did, let's say, crops, does that, and they use the pesticides, does that then create a problem for us with EPA when we go to build a school on it, that pesticides are in the ground?
You can do studies. I mean, you can do soil studies at that point. So.
And
But
with the
that'll
property,
cost us, could keep us from building there.
I don't think that would be a concern, but Doug's shaking his head. Doug might want to answer that, but
I'm sure cow manure would be okay, but I'm just worried about the pesticide.
How does anybody build any place of any type in a farm field, and you go into rural Missouri and they build a new school somewhere and it was a farm field? How do they do it? Can't be. I wouldn't let that be a hurdle to.
Throwing it out there.
I sure wouldn't let that be a hurdle. I'm a little more curious about fencing. If we allow cattle, which great.
They can put temporary fencing up, they'd be fine.
But yeah, I'd have to have something in there about some fencing. But
That it's not at our expense.
Correct. Well, if you do a cash.
or we
lease.
fence it and pay for the fencing, and then it's figured into the rent or something.
Well, and probably your majority interested party is going to be somebody who has adjacent property, who may not need a fence. That's all I'm going to say.
Do we put a restriction on hemp? So that we don't.
Yep.
I'm just asking.
Hey, you all can do whatever you want.
There's a lot of
What-
unanswered
How,
questions.
how
are we
much are we
going
going
to
to make on this? What's the average if we do this? I mean, do we even know?
I am not an agricultural land.
If it's crop ground, you could probably get 120 an acre,
As I say,
Dollars.
it isn't going to be
$120 an acre times how many acres. If
Per
you're just going to
year?
do for cattle, it's probably
27.9.
30 or 40.
And so we put this out to bid with what specs? I mean, we have to have something in mind. We don't just let the person decide what it's going to be.
Right.
So we have an agreement drawn up by our attorney, which would specify ag property. If you all wanted to exclude certain agricultural products, you could do that in those specs.
Mhm. And then what's the financial end of it? Is that in the lease agreement
It would
also?
be, yes.
But we don't have that figure yet.
Well, it would be through a bidding process.
But
would
they
bid.
tell us what they want to pay for
Correct.
it.
And, you would,
And then we decide if we want to
we
accept
accept
that
it or not.
That is correct.
That's fine, because they would have to access the property from their property,
There's no easement.
correct? So they would come onto our property from their property. I guess I don't understand why they wouldn't need a fence for cattle. I don't understand that part.
Because if they're adjacent already.
Yeah,
So the previous owner of the property that was near there,
uh-huh.
there was no fence there, and the cattle just wandered on from their property to our property.
How did they not wander anywhere else?
Because there is
They have
fence
fence on their
on
property.
the south and east portion of it. Or they may put
Can
up.
we pull it up on a map and look
Get
at
it,
it?
but
That's the
whatever.
road.
Can we see it on the casscounty.com website and go down to the assessed maps?
You can go onto the GIS website. I mean, I have it pulled up right now on my phone.
It was purchased on 5/15/07. The contract was approved.
Paul, can we put that on there? I guess this was
the
not up
Cass
for it. This
County.
is informational, isn't it?
No, I'm requesting.
It's action.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an action item.
that we be allowed to advertise for bids. That's my request. Is that we advertise for bids.
It's an assessment information and maps, or GIS, yeah.
You don't have to accept it.
Right.
That's a lot of acres.
I move to allow the administration to advertise for bids for the rental of the Jones Ranch property.
Second.
Deed holder would be what?
Okay, we have
Who
a
owns it?
motion and
Us,
a
Cass
second.
R9? She's trying to pull it up on the website, unless you got a map. Oh, here comes
We
the
have a
map.
map.
I mean,
Where the cows walking free.
So
You can keep looking. You can go go to deed holder and hit Harrisonville, Cass R9.
because the Milners have fence up for their cows,
Okay.
We have
which
a
is the
map
south
of
side
the
of
thing.
it.
So if you look at this map, there's fence here along the west side and on the south side, and then right here, protecting the subdivision.
A lot of sirens tonight.
Was it like adjacent to a street or something? We're going to be done voting by the time they get back. No, that wouldn't be.
We've got a motion in a second.
Yep, we've got a motion in a second.
Well, I think we're just giving them permission
Yep. Doug
not
and
to
Cameron.
accept anything.
All right, we've got a motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Let's see what you get.
Now we need a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, you can kind of see the fence.
Okay, there it is. Uh-huh.
And just, can we say anything else related to it, or are we
Okay.
done?
Done. We voted.
Yeah, we're done.
It's gonna go out for bids, but we still
You
have time to
can,
say.
you can,
We don't have to, I mean, just because we put out the bid doesn't mean we have to accept it
Right.
either.
Correct.
Right.
We can do a little exploratory to see if it's worth it or not.
I need that map back. Wherever it-
All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Isn't that
Okay.
cool how you can pull that up?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?